Good Tuesday morning. I wanted to talk to you guys today, say good morning, and I wanted to talk to you today about the ugly duckling syndrome. So it's the point at which your artwork or your song or, whatever is at the stage where you look at it and you go, I've put all this work into it and it doesn't look great. It's the middle zone, and it happens all the time in watercolor. So good morning. If you've just joined me, we are talking today about working through that point where it's, oh, my painting's not good enough. What should I do? Should I scrap it? And we're going to have a look at that with our sunflower today. It's the exact same thing that happens when you're cleaning your boat and you're halfway through the clean and it's messier than it started. So that's what today's going to look like. And I just wanted to warn you that the sunflower today, at the end of today, is not finished and it might be an ugly duckling. So I just want you to love it like you would love an ugly duckling, and just trust me that tomorrow it's going to be not an ugly duckling anymore, unless it spends a couple of days as an ugly duckling. Okay, so as usual, I will reply to the comments. Kath's actually in the comments, so if you do want to say good morning, Kath, type a little good morning. But Sheridan did explain to me yesterday that some of you guys are painting along, so I don't expect a lot of typing. If you're watching this in the replay, hashtag replay, and if you are not a very quick typer, just a love heart is awesome because they come all over the page and I love to see them. Okay, so we're going to have a look at our awesome sunflower from yesterday. And I'm still very much in love with mine. I really like how the colours have dried and how I've got this kind of leaf pattern. I'm pretty much going to destroy that today because this is the first layer, and with watercolour you have lots of layers and you can't get attached to this first layer, unfortunately. Okay, so we're going to do a technique called layering, and what we're going to do is the background and an extra layer as well. So I'm using a number 6 sable paintbrush, but I also have a number 3 because I think I might change to it, but then I'm not 100% sure what I'll use. So I've also got a 000 squirrel paintbrush, but I think I'm going to go in with my 6 at the moment with some clean water. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill out this painting a little bit more by putting a sunflower up in the corner here behind this sunflower. So I'm going to start wetting around the petal because I don't want it to go into the petal. And I'm going to take my orange, I'm going to go straight in with an orange, and I'm going to make it look like the wind has kind of blown these petals. And I'm being very impressionistic with these blown petals because it's the background and it's not meant to be in focus. The one that you want to be in focus we've already done. Oh, you're going to have to bear with me while I get a little bit of extra green out of my pack. Let me have a look. Apologies. So this is the Phthalo green. I use so much of it because if you remember from last week, it goes very translucent, so you can't get it to be that dark. But I persevere with it anyway because it's gorgeous. So I'm going to mix the Phthalo with some purple. Greens in the background, I always try to add purple to them because it's a shadow colour. And I'm just making the hint of some of those bits of those leaves that are at the end of the sunflower. And this sunflower is kind of being pushed like that, and it doesn't need to be perfect. I'm going to take some of that to the edge. Actually, I'm not going to do that. Alright, so I've got a sunflower happening up in this corner. I'm going to get a little bit of white and dab it in so that it's bright enough, and I'm going to put a sunflower over here because I want it to be a little bit symmetrical, and in this case the petals are coming the wind is blowing the petals up. So I'm going to have a layer of petals going up, and the grass is going to be under, not the grass, the leaves from this sunflower are going to be underneath it. If that makes sense. You'll see what I mean at the end anyway. There's another layer of petals that I want to put there, but you know that if I put them in now, they'll just all melt into one big giant flower. Okay, so now we've done that, we needed to do that. That's not layering, that's just the background layer. We couldn't do it yesterday because we didn't want to ruin our sunflower. We're going to go look at this sunflower and we're going to add the second layer of petals. And for that, I'm using my yellow. Let me show you. I'm using my yellow, but I'm taking it as a bit of a transparency, so I'm not using the pure one. I've got some water on my paintbrush and I'm using the diluted one. I'm taking it from the middle of one petal up and down, turning my paintbrush on the side and just quickly filling it in like that. Then I take a bit of orange and I tip the end and I tip the two bits where it touched the circle in the middle. Clean your paintbrush, grab some more of your yellow transparency, and you're working around your sunflower in that way. So you're creating more petals. Petals are the best thing to do for transparencies because you can often see sunlight through them, or they often go transparent. And so this is a perfect example where there's obviously a petal here, but it's see-through. So you can see the other petal underneath, which I just think is lovely. And you're going around your sunflower with your yellow petals. That's my technique anyway. So this is laying, this is our first layer. We've, well, it's kind of like ground floor, first floor. So I always think there's a base layer, like the one you did first. And then when you're going back on top, I always call that the first layer. But, you know, correct me in the comments if you do it and the other way and say there's already a first layer down there. I don't know. But I always say this is the first layer. And this adds a little bit of dimension to your painting as well. So we're taking what was quite a flat picture and creating a layer on the top kind of creates this kind of movement in a way. If you can't completely see where your yellow line ends, I just use a little bit of artistic license and find one. Make one that's not there. So again, you're just taking your petals up. You can do this a lot slower than what I'm doing it. And you can do the petals a lot smaller. I'm very aware that I always do really big petals on the sunflowers. I like it. Okay, and there we go. This one's already dry. You see if I try to touch that one there, nothing kind of spreads. There's kind of just the hint. We're going to grab the purple because we want to create a little bit of depth. So really the trick to this technique about layering is you want to be thoughtful with your layers. You want to think, what was the base layer? What was it doing? And you also can't be precious about the first layer because it's going to disappear, unfortunately. I have stopped artwork after doing one layer and thought, oh, this is what I want to keep. I'm going to go in with some green. I'm going to make it quite transparent with my yellow. And I'm just going to try to find the tips of any of the ones that are still wet. Don't go into the dry ones, but if they're still wet, just give them a little bit of green on the side. I forgot what I was saying. Problem when you talk and paint. Yes, so this has absolutely destroyed the first painting from this morning. And it's not going to look much better when we finish today. This is what I call the point at which most people give up. All right, so I'm going to go into the circle now. You can see how the circle is really flat, and we want to go in and we want to build up those colors, because that middle of the sunflower usually in real life is quite dark. So I've got some sienna, brown sienna, and I'm just going in and re-establishing that circle, the inner circle there. And that's my brush stroke, but your brush stroke might be a little bit pointier than mine. We talked about this yesterday. Go in with some ochre. We talked about this yesterday, that you can't copy the exact brush stroke, how I hold my paintbrush necessarily. You might have a different way of holding yours, and then that's fine as well. So take this sienna over to the outside, and it's fine if it creeps up some of the wet petals. We actually want that. It harmonizes that layer, but also we are doing a wet on wet kind of inspired painting, and we kind of like that look. So I'm going to change over to my number 3, because I want to go in with less water and more pigment, and I'm thinking I'm going to take a bit of purple in, just to create a bit of shadow. So I don't want to add too much extra water. I just want to put this purple in and really just see what it does overnight or as it dries. If you're doing these tutorials all in a row, you can definitely get these done in a day. You just need a hairdryer, because the thing with watercolor is it loves to be dry. It doesn't like to be reworked when it's wet. So if I work that any further, it's going to turn into mud. So we're going to leave that there. All right. Now we've got our extra sunflowers in the background. We've done our layer for the sunflower. We want to go in and fill all this white space, because we want it to look all crinkly and watercolor-like. And this is a really fun bit. But this is what's going to make your watercolor not look the most appealing thing in the world. But bear with me, this is only day 2. We're definitely going to get back on track for day 3. This is the point at which people give up, because they look and they go, how can I rework any of this? But this is the point you need to have patience. So I've got my squirrel paintbrush, because I want to carry a lot of water, and I'm taking some clean water up to the petal. Now it doesn't matter if it's today's petal and that bleeds into the background, because what you learnt yesterday is that bleeding into the background is fine, because we're adding extra layers, and that's the look we want. Now I'm going to use my Phthalo blue because it's gorgeous, and I've diluted it quite a bit, and I'm putting it on so that there are some white patches still. Then I'm going to go in with my Prussian blue, because it's a great chaser, and I want to put the Prussian blue I love it when that happens. I want to put the Prussian blue kind of gently in the crevices of the petal, if that makes sense. But there has to be water near the crevices, okay? And then if you think that you need a little bit more green, because you've got to remember there are leaves and stems everywhere, then you can add in a little bit green. So we're going to take this down the page. I'm going to leave this section quite blue. So I'm going to again go in with some clean water, go up to my petal, and then just continue to add some of my Phthalo blue. And it's quite, what's it called? It's quite watery. I don't mind that it's all blobby and watery, because I really want the background to be quite blurred. So there's my Prussian blue again. I'm going to come back here in a minute and take some of that water off for that section, but just coming up over here. And this is where you can kind of accentuate some of your leaves and your petals by not going over them, by creating that kind of white line, and that's a watercolor line if there's a line between one layer and the other, or a line between two colors. So I'm not being, I think you probably notice, I'm not being exact at all. I've forgotten about this flower over here, so it's got another row of petals coming up there, which just reminds me I can go in and make these a little bit more painterly as well, because they're dry. And again, I don't mind if this orange ends up touching the blue, because it will look quite nice. Okay, so going in and around with the blue background color, I think I'll leave this one blue. I was thinking of putting another sunflower in there, but we'll leave it blue. So we're just doing the background at the moment. I'm doing it with a blue and then adding a lot of water, but I'm also leaving some of these white gaps because that's what creates depth. If you go over your page completely like a gradient, like you're painting a wall at home, it's going to appear a lot flatter. So just take some care where your petals are to reinforce that there are petals there. You don't want to go over them and disrespect that they're there. Petals really are one of the best things to do if you're layering. Balloons are also quite good. Bubbles are fun. We might do a bubble one. It's such a fun lesson, the bubbles. It's tricky for me to do it as a live because I don't run a hairdryer on the boat. So it doesn't dry in time, because if you're doing layers, you've really got to dry before one layer hits the other layer. But those are quite fun to do at home if you do have the hairdryer going. So I'm just going to go back and put the blue in the crevice of the sunflower, and that's going to work in our benefit tomorrow, not necessarily today. Checking. Oh, and see over here, I did put a little bit too much, so I'm just picking that up with a clean paintbrush, because that's never going to dry. Sometimes if there's a lot of pigment in a puddle like that and I've got time, I'll just let it dry, but that one was never going to dry. Again, this bit's dry, so if I was to put it here, it's not going to go anywhere. If you want it to go somewhere, you have to activate the area. Okay, and let me just think. I think we're just going to go with a little bit of green and purple, and we might just do it in some of this background flower, and we are just accidentally splashing it onto the page like that. Okay. Just trying to find this petal here, because I don't want it to completely disappear, and then softening around it. Well, that flower disappeared, but we can fix that tomorrow. That is the ugly duckling painting. It looks really flat. It looks like we have not completely made it pop. We haven't, I prefer what I started with today than what I've ended with today, and that is perfectly normal. This technique and this second layout will often flatten out the painting, and when I've painted with other people that are new, this is the point they give up at, because they've made mud and maybe they've looked and gone, oh, I'll just go back into, oh, I'll just do this one more thing, I'll just fix this one thing, and then they perhaps feel like they've ruined it, or it just doesn't look good. This is the point at which we have created our ugly duckling. But we need this point now to move on to creating our beautiful swan. I'm doing this live with you guys on Facebook, and I'm not 100% sure if it's going to turn into a swan tomorrow. I'm going to try my hardest so that it does. If you are also doing your own creating, please do share it with us in the group. And also, if you have got an ugly duckling, just so that I know, can you press the heart button either now or in the replay, because I would love to know how many people ended up with an ugly duckling. I'd also really like to know if you prefer the ugly duckling, because everybody has different tastes, and you might find that this is exactly where you stop every time you paint. But I want to tomorrow take you into making our beautiful finalized sunflower. So have fun and practice and make mistakes. Remember, leave your ego at the door. To do something like this, you need to leave your ego at the door. So leave your ego behind and have fun with it. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye.